We are possibly on the verge of World War III, nuclear war. We've got a president who is darn near mentally incapacitated. We have a vice president who is an absolute imbecile. And not only that, our president has been compromised. No one will talk about how stupid Kamala Harris is. Nobody will actually. Oh, she's great. She's great. Do you want her as president of the United States? Because she's literally a very weak heartbeat away from being the president of the United States. Be a disaster. You want her making decisions if we go to war?
No.
So, okay, stop. So we have Kamala Harris. We have the president's health, his mental health, and the fact that he has been compromised by the three countries we're now engaging in talks about war: Russia, China, and Ukraine. This rises to high crimes. For the first time, I've seen the Nixon, I've seen the Clinton, and also the Trump. And Trump was, I thought, nothing. Clinton was about the definition of are we going to allow our president to lie? Because that was the high crime and misdemeanor of Nixon. He lied. And this is the very first time I have actually seen a provable High Crime and Accountability Institute House is bracing for the indictment of Hunter Biden. But is that really, is that going to take us to the White House and Joe Biden's corruption? Welcome, Peter. How are you?
I'm great. Always good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's start with Hunter Biden. What have you heard? What is coming?
Well, we had this New York Times piece that ran last week, which talked about the grand jury that was convened in 2018. They're looking at several possible crimes, including tax evasion, money laundering, failing to file as a foreign agent with the Department of Justice, and political corruption. And the Biden administration and the Biden campaign before that had absolutely nothing to say on this issue. Now suddenly you have a story appear in the New York Times. The New York Times admits on paragraph 17 that, okay, the laptop is real. But what I think is really important, Glenn, is in this article, the Team Biden, it's a big problem. And I think that it's going to create an enormous problem within the Biden family, because the question becomes, does Hunter Biden take the fall for his dad? Or if he is indicted, does he actually fight this? And by fighting it, it brings in all the material from the prosecutors about how some of the money ended up with his dad and the favors that his dad performed. So I think they're in serious panic mode in Team Biden.
All right. So I got to believe the president would just tell his son, don't worry about it. If you're convicted, I will just pardon you, which he can do, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, of course, the other hurdle, Glenn, is that if the grand jury, which is American citizens, look at this and say he should be indicted, Merrick Garland and the Justice Department could theoretically say, no, we're going to take a pass on that.
Correct.
That would be, I think, create a huge crisis. It would be a huge stain on Merrick Garland's career, but maybe he's prepared to do it. So there's several hurdles here, but we are now finally getting to the point where we are seeing official action that's going to take place. And, of course, next year, Republicans take the House and possibly the Senate. You're going to have committees with subpoena power, I think, looking into these issues as well. So it's the circle's starting to close.
Right. And there is, am I wrong saying this is the first high crime that I have seen that could be charged for impeachment? Not in my lifetime. I haven't seen a high crime. I've seen lying about things, covering things up, some things that, I don't want. But this is taking money illegally from foreign countries and having it funneled to you by your family. All of that's illegal.
Well, correct. And add to that the national security implication.
Correct.
$31 million that we know they received from China came from four businessmen, all of whom are tied to the highest levels of Chinese intelligence, meaning they, at the same time they are helping the Bidens, they are business partners with like the vice minister of state security, which is their spy apparatus. So this has all the markings of a Chinese intelligence operation, and the Bidens happily went along with it.
So what does this mean as we are now looking at an Axis allied world? China is clearly on Russia's side, and Biden is threatening China, which I think is insanity, but he's threatening them. What does this mean? What does this old relationship do, or how does it affect us in any way?
I think it affects us in lots of ways. I mean, here's the irony of it. When Joe Biden became vice president of the United States, his son Hunter decides to set up a financial consulting business. And the three countries that he does the most work in are China, Ukraine, and Russia, who are all center stage today. And by the way, I don't think this was by random chance. I think that those four countries he did business in because they all have deeply corrupt political and corporate cultures.
Correct.
So you have a situation right now where, the Bidens have received millions of dollars from Putin-linked oligarchs who are now facing sanction by the Biden administration. And Hunter Biden on the laptop, there's a video of him. This was released. This was the one with him with the girl. He's sort of talking to the girl. And one of the things he says to the girl, who's presumably Russian, is that he's afraid that he's compromised to Russian organized crime. That's one of the things that he actually says in the video. And, if you look at who has put money in his pocket, Yelena Baturina, for example, the wife of the former mayor of Moscow, our State Department, actually meaning the Obama State Department at the time, declared that Yelena Baturina was linked to Russian organized crime. So there's one thread that can be pulled against the Bidens. Then you look at Ukraine, and of course, what is happening there by Russia is horrible. I think we've known who Vladimir Putin has always been. This should not be a surprise. But there are entanglements in Ukraine as well. I mean, Zelensky is being absolutely heroic. But let's be clear, who put Zelensky in power? It was a Ukrainian oligarch named Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky was also one of the owners of Burisma, which is the company that was paying millions of dollars to Hunter Biden. So you've got conflict upon conflict. And then, of course, you've got the China ties. And China now, has positioned itself to actually benefit energy to China. So it is an absolute mess, and it highlights why we have to be so concerned when our foreign leaders have these entanglements. Because at a time of crisis like this, of course he's calculating that, and that's part of the problem.
So, well, I mean, about China, and there are those who would want to believe that. Roger Ailes said something to me when I first started at Fox, and I said, Barack Obama is lying. He is a liar. And I was called into Roger's office, and he said, don't say that. And I said, it's true. He was lying about this. I have the tape of him saying this and then the tape of him lying about it. He said, yeah, but nobody wants to think of their president as a liar. Nobody wants to think of that. It's too ugly. And I think he was right. And so there are a lot of people that they don't want to look at this, and the press is happy to oblige. So it does the press. I mean, they're still making it about, the sex and the disgusting parties and photos of him having sex with everything that moves. They're making that into the story. That's not the story. The story is the compromise of the president of the United States. Is anybody going to report on this, Peter?
I think they will, and I say that for a couple of reasons, Glenn. First of all, I think what you're starting to see is elements of the Democratic establishment are starting to turn on Joe Biden. They see that his approval ratings are way down. They see that he's not popular, and I think they recognize that he's not probably going to be in any condition to run for re-election. If he did run for re-election, he would soundly lose. And of course, they have the Kamala Harris problem. But I do think that the Democratic establishment sees Joe Biden as a net negative increasingly. So out of political expediency, they're going to try to maneuver in such a way that casts him aside. I think the second thing, though, that's going on is the media. The media is now one of the least trusted institutions in America. There was a recent survey, I think it was Pew, but I'm not sure, that said the media's approval rating is actually lower than Congress. which,
wow.
which
I think that's
really
it's in the teens.
That takes some doing.
Yeah.
Exactly. It takes some doing. So, look, there is my experience is there are reporters in the so-called mainstream media that want to cover these stories. The problem is with the editors and the managers, and they have to be at some level deeply embarrassed about this because people that read their paper don't actually know what's going on. And the divide between reality and what they're reporting is getting larger and larger. So I get accused of being overly optimistic, but I do feel like there are several trends that are moving in the direction of this being exposed by the media.
That would be nice. I was just thinking as you were talking about the reality of this actually coming to light and the president, losing his gig over this. If I were planning to destroy America, there couldn't be a better way to do it than to run a president through an impeachment trial while a country was at war. God forbid we go into war and we have to remove the president because you can't have a compromised president. I mean, you're going to go to Kamala Harris. What a nightmare. But can you imagine what our allies would think if, they think he's weak now. Can you imagine an impeachment trial going on at the same time? It's a disaster for the United States.